Zoom recording. And I will say to you all, greetings, salutations. Thank you for being here. I am Thomas Cox, your host. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to introduce our fearless leader, our president of our IMCnow chapter, Chuck Roxon. Chuck, would you say a few words, please? You are muted, sir. Please say a few unmuted words I should have said. My bad.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. Very excited about this topic. A lot of people have been talking about it for weeks now. The very first thing I want to mention is that by way of full disclosure, we're not going to be talking about specific prices or getting together and sharing how we're pricing things. That is actually an antitrust issue. So we're not going to be talking about that.
Very, very wicked.
Other than that, right. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be filled with a lot of very exciting insights. And rather than take up any more time, I would just like to turn it over to our speaker. And
actually turning it back to me because I'm going to introduce the speaker.
Okay.
But close. Yes. Hi, Thomas Cox back again. So this is the announcement most of you would have seen, inviting you to come here today. And then Mark, as a fine marketing professional, created his own artwork better than mine and reposted the event a couple of different places, which is probably why we got such a good turnout. And so thank you, Mark, for that.
Good to have a team.
It helps to have a team. Some guidelines. Obviously, we will treat each other with professionalism and respect, and we will be conducting this and all of our meetings in compliance with all applicable laws, including antitrust and competition laws. Specifically, we will not be discussing or engaging in the fixing of product prices, the allocation of customers, or the division of sales markets. Do not discuss the status or substance of ongoing or threatened litigation. And don't be silent if inappropriate topics are discussed. Do formally object. That is actually boilerplate from my IEEE days when we had the same basic issues come up from time to time. Here's a quick overview of our calendar. Today, of course, April, you'll see that our past events included the Art of the Introduction in February and Marketing Your Professional Services in March. We've got a ChatGPT and AI topic in May, and mindfulness in June. Back half of the year is as yet unscheduled. So if you've got ideas for speakers, please don't keep them to yourself. I would love to have your topic and speaker ideas. That's how we got Mark. A bit about Mark Stiving. He's done pricing as his area of focus and expertise for 30 years. He teaches other pricing experts. If you go to his website, you'll see this page with all these courses on how to be a pricing expert. So he's sharing widely. He's the author of 3 books on pricing. That's a snapshot from my Amazon session earlier. And I know I originally thought, oh, I wonder how I could price my stuff better. And then it dawned on me, I think Chuck suggested that well, Andy could help you help your clients with their pricing. So I have to listen to this whole thing twice, once for me and then once for my clients. It should be obvious to everyone, perhaps but me, but there you go. So I'm very excited to have Dr. Mark Stiving as our guest speaker, and he's the man when it comes to pricing. With no further ado, Mark, please take the floor, take it away.
All right, thank you, Tom. Let me share my screen, if I may. Hopefully we're all looking at the screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So let's talk about pricing your professional services today. And I love the way Tom framed this, that said, we're going to talk about how you can get better at pricing for you. But at the same time, all these concepts we're going to talk about, almost all these concepts we're going to talk about, apply equally to your customers. So if you could start to learn to think the way that we're going to teach you to learn to think, then it'll give you the ability to help your clients even more than you do today. So we're going to do a couple big, really important rules. And the very first rule we're going to use is the most profitable pricing decision any company can make is to adopt value-based pricing. That is a really simple meaning. It means charge what your customers are willing to pay. It's almost impossible to do. because it's impossible for me to read your mind. I don't know how much you're willing to pay me, but my goal is to always get closer and closer. And if I use that as my goal, if I use that as my attitude, then I can get away from some pretty bad pricing behaviors that we sometimes see in our world. Because what we need to remember is our customers are trading money for value. By the way, as we go through this, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them into the chat. I'm going to try to open a chat window if I can figure out how to do that. And if I can't figure it out, Tom is going to watch the chat window and holler at me if something important comes up. Does that sound fair, Tom?
Absolutely, I will do that.
Okay, perfect. So customers trade money for value. And if you think about the last time you bought something, doesn't matter what it is, the only reason that you bought it is because you thought it gave you more value than it cost you in money. And this is true with every single purchase decision we make. And this is true with our customers as well. They're only going to buy something from us if they think they get more value than it costs them in money. And so the real question is, what is value? How do they think about value? And what does value mean to them? And so value to them, well, we've got to put ourselves in the shoes of each individual buyer and start to ask ourselves, how does this person value our product? Now, I have no idea what this person is thinking, but the idea is that we want to be understanding how these people think. Ryan, I'll throw this in a PDF and give it and share it with Tom, and Tom can share it with all the attendees. And so the very first impactful insight that we're going to have is companies exist to create value for customers. Pricing is the one thing that you do that captures that value. So your company exists to create value for your customers. Your clients exist to create value for their customers. Everything we do, 99% of what we do is creating value for our customers. Pricing is the one thing we do to grab some of that value and put it in our own pocket. So value becomes much, much more important than we've ever thought that it did in the past. So let's talk about this thing called value-based pricing. And so this is, I'm going to need some audience participation here. You can use your chat with me if you don't mind. So there's an item that costs you $20, all in, whatever cost you think matter to you, $20 is the cost. You are able to read a buyer's mind, and this buyer, you know for a fact, is willing to pay you $100. If you charge $100 or less, they're going to buy from you. If you charge $101, they're not going to buy from you. I have one really important question. How much should you charge? Go ahead and type it in the chat for me, please. Rachel says 100, Sharon says 100, Ryan says 100. Elizabeth is really nice and wants to give this guy $5 of her own money. Monica says 100. Jerry's giving away $3. If you pronounce your name Rabia, that is the awesome question right there. I want to know what others are. I want to know what others are charging. Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. The question, Dick says, I'm not going to sell it. Okay. The right answer here is $100. I mean, if you want to give away money, you're welcome to sell it for 95 or 97 or 99. But if you want to maximize your profits, you sell this for $100. Okay. Now I want to change the game a little bit. What if it costs you $50 and the buyer is willing to pay 100? How much do you want to charge now? Go ahead and type it in the chat for me. Maurice just copied and pasted. We got 100, 100. Jerry is still being nice. Diane's at 100, 150 or less. Man, I'd love to know what Monica's thinking. She wants to give it away. She doesn't want to sell it. All right. So the right answer is $100. Here's the hard one. What if it costs you $150 and he's willing to pay $150? Now, how much are you going to sell it for? Don't sell, walk away. Can I pivot? Can I put something else in? Can I pivot my business? Loss leader or bundle it? 150. Okay. So these are all really good answers, but there's an important lesson that I want you to take away from this slide. And that is cost doesn't drive your pricing. Something else, in fact, it's willingness to pay that should drive your pricing. So if we can learn or understand what our buyers are willing to pay, that's what should be setting the prices that we charge. Now, I'm going to tell you the value that your customers receive, the value that your customers perceive has absolutely nothing to do with your costs. So my mother-in-law bought a house in 1969 in San Jose, California. We sold it not too long ago, but I want you to know that she paid $25,000 for that house. So the cost was $25,000. How much should she sell it for? Millions, 2 million. Yeah, I'm with you, right? A lot more than that. I'm with you. Okay. So let's say that she's not, she's super nice. She likes you a lot. She thinks she wants to make a profit. So instead of 25K, she's going to sell it to you for 50K. So you just now bought it for 50K. You're going to turn around and resell it. Are you going to sell it for 75K? Or are you going to sell it for millions, market value, 1.5 million, right? You're going to sell it for the market value. Tom. Okay. The real point here is costs aren't driving the amount of value that our product delivers. If it costs you absolutely nothing to deliver value, you can still charge for it. It is okay. So it doesn't matter how many hours you work on something. It doesn't matter how much you spent to create something. It matters, what is the customer willing to pay us? What is a buyer willing to pay? And so now if I put myself in the shoes of a management consultant, I'm thinking many of you still charge by the hour, or at least you do your billing or your pricing by the hour. There are possibly 50 different reasons to stop billing by the hour, but I'm going to give you my top 5. So hopefully you enjoy these. And if you come up with more that I didn't have, feel free to throw them in the chat and maybe it'll resonate with someone else. My number 5 reason to stop billing by the hour is you have misaligned goals with your customers. You want to bill more hours because that puts more revenue and more profit in your pocket. They want you to bill less hours because it saves them money. Because of these misaligned goals, we end up with meeting reluctance. So they don't want to schedule a meeting with you because they know they have to pay for it. And that hurts our ability to collaborate with our customers. They have small talk reluctance. They don't want to have any small talk with you because they know they're paying for it. And that hurts the ability to build relationships with our customers. What else? We can't scale exponentially. In order for us to make another dollar, we have to work another hour. We have to hire another person. So it's a linear growth. It is not an exponential growth path. Price segmentation is hard. I'm going to teach you how to charge different customers different prices, but it's really hard to look at one client and say, we charge you $300 an hour, and another client and charge them $200 an hour. It's hard to do price segmentation when we charge by the hour. Ooh, one of my favorites, you make less money as you become better.
Ouch.
Right? The better you get, the more efficient you become, and the less money you make. That makes no sense to me. And then my favorite, hours and value are not correlated. The number of hours you work is not necessarily correlated with the amount of value our customers receive. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're thinking about the value our customers receive, not what it costs us in hours or expenses, anything. And so our impactful insight as we roll out of this first section of the presentation, your costs don't drive your pricing. Willingness to pay should drive your pricing. Let me pause for a second. Anybody disagree? Anybody agree? Anybody have a comment or a question?
I've got a question.
Yep.
And it's sort of on the issue of small talk. You know, half my business is small talk and hand holding. So I just don't have enough hours in the day to not charge for at least some of it.
Oh, okay. So let's be super clear. I don't want you to charge for small talk or for hours that you're working. I want you to charge for the value that you're delivering. So tell me what you do real quickly.
Do transformation advisory.
Okay. And so what's the value of a transformation to a client?
It's quite significant, but they don't always know the value up front.
So a little bit later, we're going to teach you how to help figure out what that value is or how to get close to it, at least estimate it. But is it $1 million?
Usually more than that.
Okay. So as a general rule of thumb, we can charge about 10% of the value that we can deliver to a customer. So if a customer believes that you're going to make them $1 million, you could charge them $100,000 for that. How much small talk could you do for $100,000?
Well, I think I can do a significant amount. My question is just where efficiency and hours spent sort of converge or diverge. There's a point at which I could do things quite efficiently, but the client wants me to do other things as well. So that means I can't be servicing another client if I'm doing that piece. So at some point, I want the client to dial down their expectations of small talk a little bit so that I have the time to do something else.
Yeah, I don't think clients have expectations of small talk. Clients have expectations of you delivering value to them, whatever that looks like. And so it could be that what you're not doing is coming to an agreement with a client that says, hey, let's go solve this problem for you. Because that's really what you're doing is you're solving a client's problem for them. And that problem costs them money. And when you solve it, they make money. And your job is to sell the solution to the problem, not hours of working towards the solution to the problem. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
I'm wondering to what extent the demand for small talk or the perceived demand for small talk may be a demand or a desire for comfort or connection or something that the client's not putting into words. That perhaps is not the right rabbit hole to go down to quite at this moment.
Thomas, yes, I think in change management, you end up with a lot of that. But, you know, that's maybe a niche. And so we can park that for later, as you said.
Thank you.
I agree with that. You've got to track your time, but then you don't know on the back end what you have to plan for. But I agree with that.
Thank you, Margot.
All right, let's jump into the next one. The second most profitable pricing decision any company can make is to adopt price segmentation. Now, I'm guessing most of you don't have this problem, but especially those of you who are not charging by the hour do not have this problem. But let's talk a little bit about it. And what price segmentation essentially says is we get to charge different prices to different customers based on their willingness to pay. We see this all the time in many, many different industries. Possibly the easiest one to think about is an airplane. Last time you were sitting on an airplane, do you think the person beside you paid the same price you did, assuming they're not related to you? Right? And the odds are really good. The answer to that's no. So we charge different prices to different customers all the time. We see this in a lot of different situations. And so we, as business people, should feel comfortable saying it is okay for us to charge different prices to different customers based on their willingness to pay. Now, their willingness to pay is based on their perception of the value that they're going to get from us as a supplier. And so we started out the day we looked at this guy and we said, hey, let's put ourselves in this person's shoes and try to understand what this person's thinking. Well, my question to you would be, is what this person is thinking the same thing that this person's thinking? Or the same thing that this person's thinking? Or the same thing that this person's thinking? And obviously the answer is no. And so we want to be thinking about how is it that different customers value our products? What are the problems they have? What's the value of solving those problems? The impactful insight that we want to get out of this section then is we don't have to treat every buyer the same. We get to charge different buyers different prices for whatever reason we want. Now, we want it to look fair. If you're going to charge prices for a product and it's possible that different people are going to see the different prices, then what we tend to do is we set a high list price and then offer discounts to reasons or for reasons that we think people might deserve a discount, right? So typically seniors or children or military, we give discounts to these groups of people. But that's not the only way we do price segmentation. And we need to feel comfortable saying we can charge different prices to different customers. So I'm going to pause. I know this one just caused some angst in some people's minds. Go ahead and give me the angst. No angst. All right. Maurice, thank you. I appreciate that. So now let's dive into what does value really mean, because we're talking about how do we charge different customers different prices based on the amount of value they perceive from our product. And so we know customers are going to give us money for value. The more value they perceive, the more money they're willing to pay us. So how do they perceive value? And when we think about value, I'm going to start out by defining two different types of value. And these two types of value are really important for us when we start to think about how much should we charge. The first type of value we'll call inherent value. Inherent value is what's the value of solving the problem. So I'll ask you, you don't even have to type this in. I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How much do you value having air to breathe? I'm pretty sure the answer is a lot, right? Pretty much everything you have, you would trade it in order to have air to breathe. Got it, right? So this is the value of solving the problem, inherent value. Then there's a type of value we'll call relative value. Relative value is what's the value of your product relative to the alternatives. So I just captured some fresh Reno air. Anybody want to buy it? No? Why not? Yeah, Maurice, she's a cheapskate. He's a cheapskate. He's a cheapskate. Huh. Well, Rachel, no way. No way. So here's why you didn't want to buy my air. Because you have all the free air around you that you need. So the relative value of air is absolutely nothing because you have free air. So that says to us that air is either worth everything you own or absolutely nothing, depending on if we're talking about inherent value or relative value. Now, that's an extreme example. Let's see if we can use a slightly different example for a second. And we're going to use guitars, because this inherent value and relative value really means a lot. It means has a really important meaning to us. So let's assume for a moment that you do not play the guitar today. Tomorrow morning, your significant other nudges you and says, "Hey, honey, I would really like it if you would learn to play the guitar and sing me a love song." Now, doesn't that just tug at your heartstrings? Aren't you just thinking, "Oh my God, I gotta go get a guitar and take lessons now"? So what do you do next? Well, first off, I want to point out something. You just said yes to the will I decision. Will I buy something in this product category? Yes. And so that's the inherent value decision. What do you do after you said yes to will I? You go to the guitar store. You start shopping for different guitars. Which one fits me better? Which one sounds better? What style do I want? And of course, how much are they? Price becomes a really important part of this decision, where you didn't even think about price when you were making the will I decision. So when people make a purchase decision, most of the time, they make two different decisions. The first decision they make is will I buy something in this product category? And then they go on to say, okay, which one am I going to go buy? When they're making the will I decision, they're looking at inherent value. What's the value of solving the problem? And they are not price sensitive when they're making this decision. Something other than price drives this decision. But once they've said, yes, I need to go buy a guitar, I need to go buy a refrigerator, I need to go buy a car, now we're using relative value. We're comparing the different alternatives, and price becomes really important to the decision process. Most purchases go through both of these decisions. So let's do a quick example. Here we've got green beans. Your significant other asked you to run to the store and grab a can of green beans. I need them right away. You show up at the store. You're standing in front of the aisle, the green bean aisle. You see Del Monte for $1.69. You see Safeway Kitchens for $1.49. Do me a favor, type in the chat, which one are you going to buy? Del Monte or Safeway? Type it in the chat. All right, let's, since Monica was fast on the Del Monte, let's go with most people are going Del Monte. Wow, look at that. Look at that. Okay, Monica, go ahead and unmute yourself for just a second and answer a question or two for me, please. I just want to know why you chose Del Monte.
Well, quality is one, and the other fact is dietary reasons, no salt added.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And it looks like I only had one Safeway chooser, so that's going to be Ryan. Ryan, tell me why you chose Safeway.
I'm a procurement guy, so I'm always looking for something that's cheaper, as long as it meets my quality needs.
So as long as it meets the quality level, your wife didn't say get good ones. She just said get a can. We met the specifications, right? Okay, good. I've actually heard some people say to me, it's the exact same green bean out of the exact same factory, just a different label on the can, right? Maybe that's true. I don't know. It never really matters to me what decision you make. What always matters is how you made the decision. And every one of you made the decision the exact same way. Every one of you said, Del Monte is 20 cents more. Is it worth it? Most of you said yes. One of you said no. This is exactly how your customers decide between you and a competitor. which one's more expensive? Are you worth it? So if you find yourself up against competition, understand this is the way your customers, your buyers are thinking about you versus your competitors. And so it's all about the relative value. What we want to start to understand is, are we more expensive? And ideally, we usually are more expensive. I like being on the more expensive side. And then we have to say, can we prove it? Can we justify why we charge more than somebody else? And this is the relative value. Why are you worth more than somebody else? I don't need the answers, but your buyers do. Otherwise, they won't pay you more. Now, as I mentioned, when we look at this, we say 20 cents more, is it worth it? And I don't really know what's true, what's not true, but here's a really cool observation. It doesn't matter what's true. It only matters what your customers believe is true. If you believe that Del Monte is higher quality, then it's probably worth 20 cents. If you believe that the Safeway green beans are made in the same factory as the Del Monte green beans, then you're probably not spending the extra 20 cents. The same is true with our customers. If we expect our customers to pay us more, they have to believe that we're worth it. And what that says to me is that we need to build products that are better than our competitors' products and make sure we can communicate that to our customers. Otherwise, we don't get paid for it. Okay. Now to my fit. By the way, I'm going to pause for just a second. Any questions on that? I got a few minutes. Any questions? Long enough pause. Okay, now for my favorite. Who's been bungee jumping? If you've been bungee jumping, type yes in the chat for me, please. This is not going to go well. I just want to point that out. Zip lining, no, I want bungee jumping, Elizabeth. I'm picky. I'm picky. No, Ayan. Okay. I'm going to tell my story. If I don't have a bungee jumper in the room. So I was in Queensland, New Zealand. I got to go bungee jumping over the Shotover River. It's the very first place they ever did bungee jumping. It costs $125 to go bungee jumping there. Now, if you were to ask me, hey, Mark, did you think about going there in Queensland, New Zealand, or were you thinking about someplace else, right? Were you trying to choose between two alternatives, or was it just that one or nothing? And I would say it was just that one or nothing. I never went on to make a which one decision. I only made the will I decision. And so now ask me, hey, Mark, would you have gone for 150? Sure. How about 200? Yeah, probably. 250? Starting to get expensive, maybe 300. Yeah, probably not. The important point here, price didn't drive my decision. Sure, I could get to a point where I would say no, but price didn't drive my decision. Something else did. So I want all of you to imagine for a minute that you are good friends of mine. We are in Queensland, New Zealand. We are in front of the bungee jumping place. It is only $125 to go bungee jumping. Go ahead and type in the chat for me, yes or no, are you going with me? Yes or no, you're going with me. I want to see it. Let's go. Who's going bungee jumping with me? Who's going oh, I got Diane says, yes, she's a daredevil. Look at that. I got Monica's a definite no. No, après only. Does that mean after only? So when we go drinking? All right. So I got one whole taker. Thank you so much, Diane. I appreciate it. For those of you who don't like me well enough to go for $125, do me a favor and type yes if I can get you to change your mind. So would you go for 100? Would you go for 75? Ooh, Rachel changed her mind. Yes, Rachel's in for 100. Would you go for 75? Nice one, Tom. Okay, really important decision. Price isn't driving your decision. Something else is driving your decision. Yes, Regina, that is the exact point. Something else is driving your decision. The decision whether or not to go bungee jumping on the Shotover River had nothing to do with the price and everything to do with, do I want to go bungee jumping over the Shotover River? And so what we want to learn to do is recognize when sometimes our customers are not comparing us to competitive alternatives. They're only thinking to themselves, I have a problem, I need to solve it. Am I going to hire you to solve it or not? They're only making the will I decision. And when we can figure this out, this is awesome, because that means price isn't driving their decision. Something else is driving that decision. And so when people are only making a will I decision, they're not thinking about a competitive alternative. Let me give you a few examples. When you go to the movies, you decide what movie you want to go to, probably based on the theater that's closest to your house, what time the movies are showing. Maybe the theaters have different prices and you go to a less expensive movie theater. But here's what you weren't thinking before you went to the movies. How much is the price of popcorn? And then after you walk in the door, you ask yourself, am I going to take out a mortgage today or not? Because you only have one choice. You're driving in the middle of nowhere. You see the sign that says last gas 75 miles. You glance down at the gas tank. It says 1/8 of a tank. You pull off. The price of gas is 4 times the price of what it is in the city. Are you buying gas? Yeah. Because price isn't driving that decision. Here's my favorite. If you are using an iPhone today, my guess is here's what's going through your mind. Should I upgrade to the new iPhone 14 or not? But what you're not thinking is, should I upgrade to the new iPhone 14 or switch to Android? You're only making the will I decision. Will I buy another Apple phone or not? For your information, Android has 72% of the worldwide market share in cell phones. Apple has 85% of the worldwide profit share in cell phones. That's the difference between will I and which one. So I would ask you to think really hard. Do you have will I products where people can only buy from you? Or can you recognize the will I situations where people only look at you and don't look at competitive alternatives? Because when you can do this, your customers are not price sensitive. And if you charge 10% more, it doesn't change their mind. So for will I products, we talked about the iPhone. That's a product that almost everybody makes a will I decision on. How about your electric utility? Most of us only have a choice of one electric utility. That's the will I decision. Every time they raise prices on us, we say, oh, I'm going to use electricity. And we do that for a week or two, and then we go back to using however much we used before. We still use as much no matter how much they charge. But here's an interesting one. Do you have products or capabilities that are add-ons or options to your basic offering? Or do your clients have add-ons or options to their products? These should all be priced as though they're will-I products, because most of the time they are. Sometimes we find us in these situations where a product that normally has competition doesn't in this situation. So we talked about popcorn at the movie theater. We talked about last gas. What about relationships? What about someone that hired you last year to do a project and this year they have a new project? They might not be shopping around. They might just be going to you. What if someone referred you? Oh, you got to go use Tom because I used him last year and he was great. Maybe they're not going to shop around and they're just going to go look at Tom. When we can recognize these products and situations, it gives us the ability to start moving our prices in an upward direction. So here's a money idea. Here's some free money for everybody. Find and build more will-I products and situations. All right, I have one more topic I want to cover, and let me get through that before I open it up for questions, because I want to make sure I get through this and get you guys out on time. One of the questions that we often think about is what is value? How do our customers perceive the value of our product? And I created a concept I call value tables, but it's really just a logical way to think about value to a customer. And everybody who buys a product, whether they understand it or not, they had a problem that they wanted to solve. And so they buy a solution to the problem. Now, when I create value tables, I usually start with the solution. And I do that because you tend to think about your products first. You think about your offers first. So I'm going to ask you to take your product and all the features of your product and all the things you put on your website that say, this is really important and you should hire me because I do this or because we can do this. Those are all what I'll call marketable product features. Those are solutions. The only reason you think those are cool is because they solve a problem for a customer. What problem do they solve? Can you articulate that problem in a really clear way that resonates with clients? I have to say, this is probably the single hardest thing that most people have to do. They have a really hard time figuring out and being able to articulate that problem. And I'm going to give you a few examples in a second. But let's say one of your clients has this problem, they buy your solution. What's a result they might expect to achieve? And can we make that result quantitative? Can it be 2% less turnover? Can it be 4% higher close rate? Right? Can we make this a quantitative result? And then for you guys, the last column should be the easiest because you're all management consultants. If someone hands you a quantifiable result, we should be able to use business acumen to help our client figure out how much more profit that means to their business if they achieve that quantifiable result. In the B2B world, value can be measured in dollars. The only reason a company hands you money is because they think they're going to make more profit because they handed you money. Can you measure that profit? Can you help your client estimate that profit? And that's really the whole point of these value tables. So trust me, I've done this hundreds of times, but let's go through a few examples. This is one of my favorite. I have a couple of favorite examples, but this is a really cool one. So what you're looking at here is a connector. They sits on top of a light pole, and it's got this case on top to protect it from the weather. But I want you to notice that on the black base, on the far left-hand side, there is a little gray circle, a little gray oval. That happens to be a screen. Do you think we could put a dollar value on that screen? to the customer. And that's what we're about to do. So here's the question. Why do we put that screen in the base? I like to put my problems in first person format. So I speak as though I'm the customer. And so the customer says to us, we have a lot of electronics failures on top of light poles due to condensation from large temperature swings. Awesome. If you've got that problem and you buy our solution, do you know what the result's going to be? Well, the vent allows the escape of condensation, lengthening the life of the electronics, resulting in 20% fewer failures. For 100,000 light poles, the normal failure rate would be 1,000 per year. So that would decrease by about 200 per year. Nice. So that's a quantitative result, 200 fewer failures a year. What's the dollar value of that? Well, if we could save 200 failures a year at $1,000 per repair, that's $200,000 or $2 per pole per year. I want to point out that we just put a dollar value on a screen in a device simply by looking at what problem did we solve and what were the results a client's expecting to get. Here's an example from a very large consulting firm. They have a solution they like to call enterprise cost reductions. So what was the problem? Why did they do that? And we're going to put this in their customers' words. We don't do a good job of managing our overall costs. We don't know how to optimize our processes, and we're uncomfortable letting go of people. Well, what kind of result might we achieve if you hired our enterprise cost reductions team? Well, we think we could get a 5% cost reduction in an identified division. Well, the value of this one is pretty darn easy to figure out. If you've got a $2 billion cost structure, a 5% reduction is $100 million in savings per year. Let me do one more that I find a lot of fun, and then we'll wrap it up and get some, oh no, I got some more good stuff for you. Fast food example, one of my clients does all the technology in drive-throughs at fast food restaurants. It's really cool. And they built this thing called a long-range communications radio. I'm like, who the heck needs a long-range communications radio? What problem are you trying to solve? And it took us a long time to get to this, but here's the problem. Our drive-through lane slows down when the customer has to wait for us to prepare the food. What's the result? Well, by taking orders at the edge of the parking lot, we have more time to prepare the food, resulting in 2 more cars per hour during peak times. Excellent. 2 cars times 3 peak hours a day times 360 days a year times $10 per car times 60% margin is almost $13,000 per year in additional profit. But it turns out this solves another problem too, because we don't have to only have one problem. When customers wait in a long line, they sometimes drive off, meaning we lose business. So if we take orders at the edge of the parking lot, customers are less likely to drive off, resulting in 1 more car per hour during peak times. We do the same math, and that comes out to $6,480 per year. But here is my favorite impactful insight. Nobody cares about your product. If you talk about the vent in your device, if you talk about the long-range communication, if you talk about well, maybe cost reductions make sense. But when you talk about your features and your capabilities, nobody actually cares. What they care about are the problems they have and the results they would expect. And when you can learn to translate your capabilities into problems, results, and value, now people care. And now we can help them figure out how much more money are they going to make when they solve that problem. And it makes it much easier for us to sell our products at higher prices. Ione says it's all about the hole and not the nail. And that's a great example, Ione. One of the things I like to say when I do that is, you've all heard the people don't want to buy a drill. What they really want to buy is a hole. Well, people don't want to buy a hole. What they really want to do is be able to put the picture up on the living room wall. Well, they don't really want the picture up on the living room wall. What they really want is a nice looking living room. Well, they don't really want a nice looking real living room. What they really want is their wife to get off their back so they can go golfing. Right. And so the question becomes, where along that chain do we stop the why, and say, this is the problem that makes sense. This is the problem that resonates with our buyers. That's what we're looking for when we do that problem column. All right, I have 10 minutes. Let me do this. This is my last slide, and then I'll open it up for any questions you guys have at all. I made these up just for you guys. So these are tips for pricing professional services that may or may not be captured in the deck that I just gave you. First tip, number one, use value-based pricing. Stop hourly or cost plus pricing. And remember, value-based pricing simply means let's focus on what our customers are willing to pay. And we can probably get away with charging more than we're charging today. Okay, these next three were not in the deck anywhere, so this is just new insights. These are tricks that I use for my business that I teach other solopreneurs or professionals to use. If you are busy, raise prices on new customers. This is like a no-brainer. If you're a solopreneur and you're working 30 hours a week, don't bring on a new customer at the same rate. Raise their price before you bring on a new customer. The follow-on to that is, are new customers hiring you at the higher price? Awesome. That means you're worth it. Now we can think about raising prices on our current customers, but we want to do it carefully. We want to pick which ones we know love us, don't hate us, would probably be willing to pay us. If you have high uncertainty on a deal, so I'm asking you to use value-based pricing. I'm asking you not to sell by the hour, and you don't know how many hours it's going to take, and you don't know if you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and you're going to quote too low. Offer a quote just to bid the project.
In other
Tell them
words,
you
you're
don't
going
know
to
the
charge a
scope of the project.
fee to do the work to come up with a bid.
Yes, charge a fee to do the work to come up with the bid, because you don't know what it is.
So it's like an exploratory project to understand what the heck this thing is they even want done anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
And here's my final one, and especially if you're a solopreneur, take this one to heart. Price with confidence. So right now, what I want you to do is think about whatever your fee is. I don't care what it is. Think about your fee. I'm even going to let you pretend that you charge by the hour just for this exercise. So how much would you charge me for an hour of your time? Now I want you to triple it and say the words out loud. My fee is blank. Don't use the word blank. I want you to just fill it in with 3x your number. Go ahead, say it out loud.
My fee is $600.
Let's hear it. Say it out loud. Everybody.
My fee is $800.
Nice.
My fee is $100,000.
Nice. I love that. I love that. Okay. So here's why I want you to do this is you're going to think of that number in front of a customer, and I'm going to use whoever said 100,000 because I love that number. And you're going to walk into a customer, you normally charge, 20,000 or something like that, and you want to quote 100,000. This is what you're going to say. This is what you're most likely to say. My fee is $100,000, but I can negotiate. And what I want you to learn to do is, I'm holding a pen right here. Say the words, this is a pen. It is a pen, right? This is a pen. There's no doubt this is a pen. My fee is $100,000.
My fee is $100,000.
Exactly.
My fee is $100,000.
Right? Exactly the same thing. State your price with confidence. Believe it. Fewer people will negotiate with you. Okay. Believe it or not, that's all I got. Did I run out of time? I got 5-6 minutes. This is me. Those are my books. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will answer any questions whatsoever for the next 6 minutes and probably on LinkedIn.
Mark, first of all, Chuck Roxon here. I just want to thank you very much for a very informative and stimulating discussion. I also want to say for comment, if anybody is afraid of not charging per hour, since 1983, I have never charged per hour. It's possible to do it and survive or thrive. Thank you.
Folks who have questions, please raise your hand. There's a little reactions button at the bottom of the screen that allows you to do that. Or just, if you wave wildly at me, I won't see you because we have so many people. You're probably off the right edge of my screen. So raising hands would be a good thing. Or just unmute yourself and just start talking. That works too. And if you don't have a specific question, we do. Margot, yes.
What if you have intangibles that, for instance, the first one of the top pieces, we've talked to a CEO, then we get the leadership team to get them in alignment, to be able to look at a new vision. And there's a process to do that. There's a workshop. So there's a fee for the workshop, but that doesn't necessarily mean, how do you translate that intangible into a value for them, unless they conceive that getting into alignment is going to make their life easier? Because oftentimes you get into a senior leadership thing, somebody came from manufacturing and somebody came from over here, and they're not in alignment at all. They just say they are.
Right, but I guess I don't understand the intangible. Why would a company pay you for an intangible?
Because if we can get them in their alignment, it saves them time.
I'm sorry. Can you get closer to your mic?
I'm sorry. Saves them
okay.
time, saves them effort, saves duplication, saves having to go back. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of
Awesome.
unclear. It's kind of unclear to me how I would get to translate your stream results into dollars.
Well, I was going to say what you just pointed out to me was that it's not intangible. Right. And so if you say to me, give me the favorite one, alignment results in what? What's the one of the biggest problems that not having alignment causes?
Clear communication, efficiency of direction, being able to.
Okay, so the problem is our different divisions don't communicate, which means they're not working in the same direction towards the same goals.
In the leadership team, they often say they're going to, but they're not. And so
Okay.
in order to establish a new vision, we have a workshop where we go in and we can actually.
Wait, I don't care.
Get
Wait.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get you to value, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the value, right? Here's one piece of the value. There's lots of pieces to this value. Here's one piece. Our divisions don't communicate, which means they often do wasted work because we're not all working towards the same goal. If they take this workshop of yours, what's the result? Well, they become aligned, communication works much better, and we have 10% less wasted work. Great. What's the dollar value of 10% less wasted work?
Probably millions of dollars.
Right. But all I did was take what you thought was an intangible. And I said, the only reason someone's paying you money is because you solved a problem. What's the problem? And you listed 3 or 4. I took one and said, okay, let's make this problem so that it feels like pain to them.
And so, Mark, is it okay if I embroider?
Of course.
So I've had similar conversations, and when they've gone well, it's usually because it goes something like this. So you think you've got an alignment problem, and you think you want more alignment, Mr. Person or Madam Person. what do you think it's costing you? How bad is it? Like, is this really worth solving? And I'm skeptical, right? I'm not trying to talk him into it. I'm trying to get them to talk me into it. Like, why fix it? I mean, is it really all that bad? Oh, it's terrible. Well, okay. Well, explain, like lack of alignment, like what kind? Like, give me an example. Oh, is it endemic? Really? Well, okay. Well, you think it's costing you money? And oh yeah. Any idea how much? I'm not sure. And you like lead them through their own thought process because they know it's painful, but they haven't monetized it yet. But they will give you the info if you are gentle and kind and not pushy in the slightest and say, okay. And so if let's pretend we fixed it perfectly. How would you even know? Like, what would be different? Like next year, it's all perfect and you notice it how? Like, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you notice? Where is it showing up on the top line, bottom line? Explain it. Okay.
Yep.
And when they give you their numbers, they believe them.
That's terrific.
And so, Tom, I would agree with
That's terrific. That would be fun.
I would agree with everything you said. My one recommendation would be not to ask how much is that costing you too early, and
Right.
see if you can get to what are those problems that are really there, right? What's going to be different next week or next year if we solve this problem? So those are the problems and the results.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And you haven't been getting there because they haven't been getting there because they just know about the subjective pain, but they haven't thought through or articulated out loud, even to themselves, how it's hitting the top and bottom line.
Yep.
And as soon as they do that, and it takes a little while, there's a really good write-up. I'm sure Mark got something, at least one of his books on this, and also David Fields' book covers this in some nice detail. That's the Guide to Winning Clients. We had a presentation on that last year.
Very helpful. I will take a look at both books.
Oh, Aon's got an interesting question. How would you recommend a value-based approach where the outcome of your work isn't measurable until after you start the work? And I think I need an example. Maybe Mark, you already know what he means, but I don't. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to interrupt our proceedings to say we're slightly actually after the top of the hour, which means we can still keep talking, but I do end the recording here with a final word from Chuck, our president, to say thank you all. And then we wrap up the recording. Chuck, please say thank you.
Truly, thank you. Thank you so much to Mark and all the participants. We just love having people that we haven't seen before and hope you'll come back. And again, have a nice evening. Thanks so much.
And we'll be back next month with something awesome. Hope to see you all there.